was a stormy Friday afternoon when I first heard the sound of the front door slam shut. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of chicken soup, the kind that always soothed my son when he was little. I didn't think much of it until I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps stomping through the hallway, heavy, angry, and then the silence, that kind that settles in like a thick cloud of pain. I turned off the stove and slowly wiped my hands on a towel, my gut already telling me something was wrong. Ethan? I called out softly. No answer. I walked down the hallway toward his room, where the door was closed. Rare for him, especially after being away at college for weeks. I knocked gently. Sweetheart, are you okay? A beat. Then his voice, low and almost cracking. She left me, Mom. My heart clenched. I opened the door slowly and found my son, all 6 feet, 2 inches of him, curled up on his bed like he was still 10 years old. His hoodie was pulled over his head, his shoes still on, and his hands were clenched into fists. His jaw tightened as he stared at the ceiling, trying to hold back the tears I knew were stinging his eyes. She dumped me, he said again, this time with more pain. She said I was too sensitive, that I cared too much. I sat on the edge of the bed and reached for his hand. And that's supposed to be a bad thing? He pulled the hoodie tighter. Apparently. He hadn't said her name yet, but I knew he was talking about Kelsey, the girl he'd brought home for Thanksgiving last year. She was sweet, polite, and she made Ethan smile in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. I had no idea what happened between them, but I could feel how deeply it had affected him. Sometimes people walk away, not because you're wrong for them, I said gently, brushing his messy brown hair away from his eyes, but because they're not ready for what you bring. Ethan let out a bitter laugh. What do I bring, Mom? Stress? Overthinking? I asked her if she got home safe every night. I brought her coffee. I sent good morning texts. She said it was too much. I wrapped my arms around his shoulders and felt his body tremble slightly under the weight of his grief. None of that was too much. It was just too much for her. We stayed that way for a few minutes, the sound of rain tapping against the window, like the world outside was mourning along with him. It had been a long time since I'd seen my son so broken. College had made him independent, stronger in many ways, but heartbreak. Heartbreak had a way of turning anyone back into a child. He looked up at me after a while, his eyes glassy. You ever feel like you gave everything to someone and they just didn't want it? I smiled sadly. I have. I hadn't spoken about his father in years. Ethan barely remembered him. He left when Ethan was 5, just packed up one night and never came back. I never told Ethan the full story, only that some people choose to leave even when they're loved deeply. But this wasn't about me. I know it hurts, I whispered, but I promise it gets easier. He nodded slowly, but I could tell the pain was still sharp. Thanks, Mom. That night, I let him sleep on the couch in the living room like he used to when he was younger and scared of the dark. I made popcorn, brought out his favorite old movies, and didn't ask questions when he started crying in the middle of a scene he used to laugh at. I just held his hand and stayed. The days passed slowly. He barely touched his phone, didn't eat much, and barely spoke. I didn't push. I just stayed close. One afternoon, about a week later, I was outside planting in the garden when I noticed him sitting on the porch, staring off into the trees. I remember when I broke up with my first love, I said, gently pulling weeds.